February 1st, 1968. The song at the top of the charts was Green Tambourine by the Lemon Pipers. The northeast part of the United States was deep into winter and looking hopefully to Puxatawny Phil tomorrow on Groundhog Day for some relief. It would still be well over a year before some of the momentous events that closed the decade, the lunar landing of Apollo 11, the rock concert at Woodstock, New York, the World Series victory by the amazing Mets, and the Super Bowl win by the New York Jets, led by Broadway Joe Namath. The Vietnam War would divide Americans even more, but in Northeastern railroading, the theme was unity, as the New York Central and the Pennsylvania Railroad, powerhouse railroads now having their problems, joined together to form the Penn Central Railroad. February 1st, 1968, the first day of the Penn Central merger, finds West Mill Yard, looking very much like it has for years, a New York Central yard. The rolling stock on that train is all pre-merger, and the consist at the head end is pure New York Central. And at the tail end, you will find what the narrator of an Emery Gullish video might describe as a bona fide New York Central caboose. Well, here it is, the first Penn Central train to roll out of West Mill Yard. Obviously, it still looks like a pre-merger train with the New York Central and Pennsy equipment. But in the coming weeks and months, rail fans will observe a changeover as freshly painted Penn Central rolling stock takes the rails. But that's in the future. Right now, we still have plenty of New York Central ovals and Pennsy keystones. As the transition continues, local fans around West Mill Yard notice the arrival of this Pennsylvania SD9, which does pull-out duty and is sometimes assigned to run local trains. It isn't long into the transition that rail fans start noticing Pennsy and New York Central units in lash-ups on trains. Pennsy GP30, GP35, along with the New York Central GP30, lead this train of empty coal hoppers. The hoppers are all New York Central and Pennsylvania cars. It isn't long, however, before those units are replaced by Penn Central Power and empty coal hoppers with the PC Meeting Worms logo on them. As the 60s come to a close and the 70s wear on, West Mill Yard is all Penn Central. Penn Central locomotives from various makers including EMD, GE, and Alco make regular appearances at West Mill. The yard is often full of Penn Central rolling stock, some of it looking new and shiny and some already showing a lot of weary road miles. and once in a while you just might catch a couple of rare survivors. The Penn Central Railroad, full of promise in 1968, was bankrupt by June of 1970. Those of you familiar with the Penn Central story know there were several reasons for why this happened. One big problem was the difference in culture between the red Pennsy team and the green New York Central team. This went from the ground all the way up to the highest corporate offices. Heck, these guys couldn't even agree on what to call a caboose. Cabin car? Another problem was the 1969 inclusion of the bankrupt New Haven Railroad that greatly drained financial resources from the Penn Central. Another problem was the ICC's insistence that the Penn Central continue running unprofitable passenger trains. Most railroad mergers increase the region and opportunities that the two railroads will serve, but the Pennsy and New York Central were running parallel through most of the same regions and to some of the same cities, duplicating services instead of increasing their business base. The two railroads' technologies weren't always compatible. They had different computer systems, different signaling systems. Pennsylvania locomotives had cab signaling, New York Central locomotives did not, although apparently New York Central locos had better armrests, supposedly. The line's early financial troubles made deferred maintenance the order of the day. Derailments cost the line millions of dollars in lost business, leading to the so-called wreck of the Penn Central. Well, even though the Penn Central merger was a financial disaster, for those of us who grew up at the time and watched those black dip locomotives and green box cars roll by, the Penn Central will always hold a special place for us. "50 years after its inception, the Penn Central lives on in HO scale on the Kingsport Division. Thanks for watching.